Covering his bloody nose, Coulson cried out, "No one leaves." He looked at the security guards standing by the door of Glorious Hotel. "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and apprehend them." The Callahans went against the Watsons and the Zenoses. "I'm just defending them. They're definitely going to pin them punching me on someone else. Do you want to be the one they choose to blame?" Hearing this, the security guards panicked. The security chief immediately ordered, "Stop them." A security guard ran over with an electric baton and stopped the Callahans from leaving. Lex turned to look at Coulson. He furrowed his brows angrily. "Coulson, do you really have to be this heartless?" Coulson walked over to him and kicked him in the gut. Lex's body went limp, and he fell to the ground. Coulson barked, "You old fool. So what if I'm heartless? I'm telling you this. It's over for the Callahans. Father, Grandpa." The Callahans rushed forward to help Lex up. They looked at Coulson with furious expressions. Coulson paid no heed to their scorn. Ads by Pub Future. As the way had been blocked by the security guards, the Callahans were prevented from leaving. "Grandpa, I'm hungry." A young girl around 5 years of age broke the silence. She looked at Lex pleadingly. Weston hugged her. "Wilhelmina, just wait for a little while longer. We will go have a meal soon." "Daddy, why can't we go home? I'm hungry and tired." Lex looked at the young girl sadly. Then, he turned to look at Coulson pleadingly. "Coulson, what do we have to do for you to let us go?" Coulson pointed at the ground and said, "Kneel." Lex froze. "No, Father. Don't listen to him, Grandpa. Just kneel, Grandpa. We're out of options. We can't afford to cross anyone else." Some pulled at Lex and told him not to kneel. Some pleaded for him to kneel. Looking at Coulson, who was wearing a smug look, he tossed his cane aside and knelt. He had nothing else to lose. He appealed to Coulson, "Please let us go." Glorious Hotel was a 5-star hotel located right in the heart of Kensington. Many passers-by gathered to witness the scene. The spectators pulled out their phones and recorded the scene. Coulson cackled while recording Lex kneeling on the ground. "Haha. Lex, I never thought the day would come when you'd kneel for me. Did you seriously think I'll let the Callahans go just like that? You must be going senile." As he said that, he kicked Lex. Lex collapsed to the ground once more. He then sent the video he had recorded to Key. "Mr. Key, look at this. Lex is kneeling on the ground begging me to let him go. Damn, this is hilarious." Upon receiving Coulson's message, Key smiled. "Nice one. I will remember you, kid. I'll let you work for me from tomorrow onwards." Coulson was thrilled. The Oswalds had hit the jackpot. He then called Stefan. "Dad, where are you now? Come here, quick. Bring the police here too. I want the guy who hit me arrested." The harder we make it for the Callahans, the happier the Watsons and the Zenoses. Key Zenos even praised me just now and offered to let me work for him tomorrow. The Callahans helped Lex up. The color on their faces were drained completely. Howard's family chewed out Montgomery thoroughly. Montgomery protested. "What's done is done, there's no use crying over it. I was the one who hit him. I promise I won't get the rest of you involved. Worst comes to worst, I'll just go prison." Lex Callahan, a prideful man, had thrown his pride away for the Callahans. He humbled himself and knelt before Coulson, a man who was many years younger than him. He only wanted to protect his family. However, Coulson only wanted to humiliate them. Lex's face was pale. The Callahans were silent. Only Montgomery remained unfazed. He was determined not to get the others involved in his fight. Stefan, the patriarch of the Oswalds, arrived with a few policemen close behind him. Although he was not a very influential man in Kensington, he was still famous around these parts. The Oswalds too had some power themselves. However, compared to the Watsons and the Zenoses, they were but a molehill in the face of a mountain. Hearing that Coulson had gotten Key Zenos' favor, he hurriedly made his way here. "Dad." Coulson walked over to him. He had stuffed a tissue paper in his nostrils. The tissue was spotted with his blood. Stefan patted Coulson's back contentedly and said, "You've done well. Once we cozy up with the Xenoses, we'll surely rise through the ranks. We might even become one of the most powerful families in Kensington." Saying that, he turned to look at the Callahans, who were wearing grim expressions. "Which one of you hit my son?" "It was me." Montgomery stepped forward. Adds by Pub Future. He was 21 years old and around 170 centimeters in height. Wearing a fierce expression on his face, he spat it out. "I was the one who did it, so don't get the others involved. My name's not Montgomery if I didn't have the balls to do that." Coulson looked at the security guards and ordered, "Break his legs." They nodded. They headed toward Montgomery while cracking their knuckles maliciously. "What are you planning to do?" Lex stepped forth to stop them. "How could you do this in full view of everyone? What are you doing, Grandpa?" Tommy pulled Lex and said to him, "Look at the situation we're in. Just let Montgomery shoulder the blame. They won't let us go otherwise. You spineless beastard." Lex yelled at him, "What did I teach you? We must stand united as a family." He was just standing up for Megan. Now that something bad happened, you are blaming it on him. Stefan chuckled, "Join in if you want to get beaten up too. Anyway, let's just beat the old man to a pulp." A security guard stepped forward and kicked Lex. Lex rolled across the ground. He collapsed to the ground. He could feel a searing pain all over his body. No Callahan stepped forward, except for Montgomery. Clenching his fists, he charged forward howling, "How dare you hit my grandpa? I'll kill you." "You can beat him up too," Stefan ordered. The two security guards charged toward Montgomery. He was no match for them. In an instant, he was pinned to the ground and beaten up. He groaned in pain. The Callahans looked at each other. No one stepped forward to stop the violence. Lex had gotten up. He sat on the ground and wept. Montgomery was beaten half dead and lay motionless on the ground. Then, he was coldly taken away by the police. Stefan did not wish for things to get out of control. And so, he chose not to involve the other Callahans. The Oswalds left. The Callahans hugged each other and wailed, "What have we done to deserve this? Why do this to us? Grandpa, think of a way. Do we have to sleep on the streets tonight?" Lex could think of no other way. I will call James." Tommy refused angrily. "Are you dumb, Grandpa? It was obvious James had set us up. Why do you still believe in him?" Megan chimed in, "That's right. They must be laughing at us behind our backs. James is not the type of person." Lex shook his head. Although he was old, he was not senile. He had a good intuition when it came to people and knew there was more to James than it seemed. James was much better than his useless sons and grandchildren. Ignoring their protests, he called James. In a room of the Clahans' residence. James was getting ready to head to bed. Suddenly, the phone rang. He got off the bed and grabbed his phone from the table. Realizing it was Lex who called, he frowned. Did something happen again? He answered the call. "What's wrong, Grandpa?" Lex told James everything that happened. "Got it. Wait in front of Gloria's Hotel. I will be there immediately." James hung up the phone. His eyes were steely. Thea, who was lying on the bed, looked over at him. "What's wrong? Did something happen?" James said as he got dressed. "Something happened with Grandpa. I'll go have a look. You should sleep first. Let me go with you." Thea prepared to get off the bed. James waved and said, "No need. I can go by myself. It's nothing too big." "All right then. Take care." James nodded. Ads by Pub Future. After getting dressed, he left the house. He drove straight toward Gloria's Hotel. At the same time, he called Scarlett. "What did I tell you, Scarlett?" Scarlett had just reached her home and was resting. Then, he received James' call. Faced with his anger, she could only ask in confusion, "What's wrong, James?" James summed up the situation for her. Scarlett broke out in a cold sweat. I'm sorry, James. This was a huge oversight on my part. I will fire my secretary immediately since she can't even handle a simple task such as this. James continued, tell the general manager of Glorious Hotel that he's fired. Send someone from Transgenerational Group to take over the position. I'm on my way there now. Alright, I'll leave immediately. After knowing that James was on his way there, Scarlett did not dare show any signs of slacking off. She immediately got out of bed, got dressed hastily, and left. At the same time, she called the headquarters of Transgenerational Group and arranged for someone to take over Glorious Hotel. Scarlett also made sure to get someone to inform the current general manager of her arrival. James arrived at Glorious Hotel in just half an hour. The Callahans sat on a guardrail by the roadside, not far away from the hotel. James parked his car and got out. Upon seeing James, the listless Callahans immediately jumped up energetically. They hurried over to James and gave him an earful. James had a feeling that would happen and so, he ignored them. He walked straight toward Lex and immediately apologized. I'm sorry, Grandpa. I slipped up. I'm in the process of solving this issue. The general manager of the hotel will be here soon. James, are you here to have a good laugh at us? Tommy angrily pointed at James. General manager, who the hell do you think you are? You are just a useless son-in-law. Enough. Lex had reached the limits of his patience. Can't you just shut up for a moment? Tommy shut his mouth in deference to the older Callahan. With no one else he could rely on, James was all Lex had. He said with a grateful look, I'm so sorry to bother you at such an hour. I feel so ashamed of our family. James waved his hand dismissively. It's nothing. Just wait for a little while longer. He waited with the Callahans outside the hotel. The general manager of Glorious Hotel was Tyrone Woodrow. After finishing up his passionate night with the model in his bed, he switched on his phone. Almost immediately, he received a call. Get your *SS over to the hotel and summon all the staff for a meeting. The call came from the headquarters of Transgenerational Group. Though Transgenerational had taken over Glorious Hotel, they chose to remain discreet and not publicly announce it. No one in the hotel except for him knew of this. Tyrone looked at the time. It was 1 in the morning. A meeting at 1 a.m. As strange as it seemed to call for a meeting at this hour, he was not willing to question any further. He immediately informed the hotel's human resource department and ordered them to notify the management team of the meeting in another half an hour. He got dressed and hurriedly made his way to the hotel. Outside Glorious Hotel, Lex wore an anxious expression. So did John's family. John approached James and pleaded, James, since you were able to find accommodation for us at the last minute, is there any way you stop Montgomery from getting charged in court? He crossed an Oswald. In order to get a better standing with the Xenoses, the Oswalds broke his leg. His condition could deteriorate if he goes to prison. You really think he can help us, John? Tommy wore a scornful look. It was not as if he had something personal against James. The man was simply a good-for-nothing son-in-law. What else could he do besides leech off the Callahans' wealth? Megan chimed in to add fuel to the fire. He wouldn't have married into the family if he was truly capable of anything. That's right. What were you thinking about relying on trash? There must be something wrong with your head. Jolie joined along in putting down James. John, what are you doing begging a trash for help? A middle-aged woman tugged at John's sleeve. She was Rachel Windsor, John's wife. Ads by Pub Future. Rachel despised James. That was because Thea had brought ruin to the Callahans. James just so happened to be Thea's husband. I had no one else to turn to. John tried to defend himself. Now that the Callahans had fallen, the connections they had made were redundant. He could only clutch at straws. The Callahans did not believe James could get Montgomery out of prison. Despite what happened earlier, he looked down on Howard and his family. Despite the fact Montgomery had stood up for them, they turned on him and ridiculed him. James gave his assurance, Grandpa, John, don't worry about it. Leave everything to me. After getting you guys some lodging, I will find a way to get Montgomery out. Anyone can show off. Lex slammed the cane and yelled at his venomous family members, I told you to quiet down. Everyone once again immediately clammed up. The group waited patiently outside the hotel. All of them were expecting the management team of Glorious Hotel to arrive soon. The first to arrive was Christopher Webb, the lobby manager. He lived nearby the hotel. Mr. Webb, a 30-year-old looking man in a suit and tie, walked into Glorious Hotel. The hotel attendant from earlier greeted him with a bright smile. Webb smiled back and nodded. Thank you for your hard work. Mr. Webb, the Callahans are still outside. They haven't left yet. The bubbly girl explained the events that had taken place to him. Oh, I see. Christopher stroked his chin. Then, he ordered the nearby security guards, we'll be having a meeting soon. Follow me and get the Callahans out of our property. If the Zenoses and the Watsons know of this, they'll no doubt harass our boss about it. If he happens to blame us for it, we'll be finished. Understood. The security guards were ready to spring into action. They followed Christopher out of the hotel. The Callahans were waiting about 50 meters away. Suddenly, a man in a black suit followed by a dozen security guards approached them. Christopher walked over to them and shouted gruffly, Hey, what are you doing here? Scram! Get out of my sight this instant. The Callahans had been mocked and humiliated all day long. Everyone had a lot of pent-up anger and no real outlet for it. Especially Tommy, who was used to living a life of luxury. He felt miserable being mistreated. All he and his family were doing was standing along a road, yet someone was here to chase them away. He responded furiously, Hey, who the hell are you? Do you own this road or something? Christopher addressed the Callahans with a condescending tone. Listen up, my name's Christopher. I'm the lobby manager of Glorious Hotel. Since you are loitering outside the hotel, I have the right to chase you away. I will count to 3. If you don't leave by then, there will be actions taken against your group. 1, 2. Tommy grew more incensed as he heard Christopher count down. Even he was doing nothing other than just standing on the nearby road. The staff of Glorious Hotel had come to chase him away. I'd like to see you try and chase us away. He crossed his arms defiantly. He still thought his status as a Callahan conferred him some sort of impunity. 3. After counting to 3, Christopher turned to the security guards. Beat him to a pulp. A dozen security guards armed with electric batons charged toward Tommy and descended upon the insufferably arrogant man. A few Callahans stepped forward in an attempt to defend him. However, they were beaten up too. Ads by Pub Future. James sat on a flight of stairs nearby smoking his cigarette. He paid no heed to the commotion. Tommy deserved it. It was about time he learned a lesson. Christopher grinned smugly at the sight of the Callahans being physically assaulted. The Watsons and Zenoses would be pleased to hear about how he had inconvenienced the Callahans. He expected his boss to also be pleased with this news and hoped it would merit him a promotion. Drag them away. The Callahans, who had been beaten up, left of their own volition. They did not wish to be further manhandled. A few hundred meters away from Glorious Hotel, Tommy sat on the ground and nursed his swollen cheeks. His face contorted with rage, and he whined, Look, Grandpa. Do you still believe in James? Lex looked at James. What's going on? James stood up saying, I will go have a look. He headed straight toward Glorious Hotel. At the moment, the management team of Glorious Hotel had arrived. Tyrone, the general manager, Christopher, the lobby manager, and some of the management team were standing in front of the hotel. With his best business-like smile, Christopher began sucking up to Tyrone. Mr. Woodrow, after I arranged for the 20 rooms you asked for, I realized that it was the Callahans who will be staying at our hotel. They are on bad terms with the Watsons and the Zenoses. Both families have made it clear that anyone who allows the Callahans to stay will make themselves their enemy. Christopher informed Tyrone about the latest developments. Tyrone frowned. He did not know that the Callahans had been put on a public blacklist. However, the order to arrange for the rooms came straight from headquarters. It was also headquarters that called for this meeting. Tyrone had a bad feeling about this. Almost immediately, he put his feelings aside. The Callahans must have made their way to transgenerational headquarters and begged them for accommodation. That was why headquarters instructed him to arrange for empty rooms. After the top brass of the company realized this, they were now assigning the blame to him. Tyrone looked at Christopher and said grimly, "Christopher, if headquarters interrogate us about the matter, say that you were responsible for it. I promise I will cover for you in the future, got it?" "What do you mean, Mr. Woodrow?" Tyrone whispered speculatively. "The Callahans must have gone to transgenerational headquarters through their connections out of desperation. As such, I was instructed to arrange for 20 rooms. Now, the top brass of headquarters must have been made aware of this incident. As you know, the company is strict when it came to its rules and regulations. They are strictly against us using our connections for personal gain. Now that headquarters has begun investigating the matter, I suspect they're trying to pass off the blame to the lower level staff." "What?" Christopher's face turned pale. "Won't it over for me if I shoulder the blame?" Tyrone patted his back and consoled him. "It'll be fine. Even if you get fired, I'm the general manager here. I can still help you out. However, if I'm fired, you'll be fired too. That way, there'll be no way out for either of us." "Fine, I'm in." After weighing the consequences, Christopher nodded. He suddenly remembered. "By the way, when did our hotel belong to Transgenerational Group?" "It was bought out a few days ago. It hasn't been made public yet. I assume that they're still sorting out the paperwork," Tyrone explained. Christopher did not expect Glorious Hotel to suddenly belong to Transgenerational Group. Somehow, the Callahans must have bribed someone inside Transgenerational Group to help them make arrangements for accommodation. Now that the top brass has found out, they were calling for a meeting. Tyrone wanted him to be the scapegoat for this entire fiasco. Christopher's career would be finished. "Mr. Woodrow, you have to vouch for me. I still have a family to feed." Tyrone patted Christopher's back and assured him, "Don't worry. As long as I'm here, I'll make sure you won't starve to death. After this incident blows over, I promise to get you your job back." Hearing this, Christopher sighed in relief. The management team of Glorious Hotel was waiting at the front door of the hotel. They were waiting for their boss' arrival. Apart from the general manager, the rest of the management team was unaware that the hotel had been taken over by someone else. Soon, a business sedan arrived. A woman who seemed to be in her mid-30s got off. She dressed professionally. Wearing a white shirt and a black sheath dress, she had an angular bob hairstyle. Beautiful and charismatic, she exuded an air of vigor. Her name was Layla Nora. She was the managing director of Transgenerational Group's hotel sector. "Ms. Nora. Ads by Pub Future." Tyrone rushed over to her and greeted her with a bright smile. "Hello, Ms. Nora." The rest of the management team was confused. Who is this woman? She doesn't look like the boss. Layla glanced at the group and said to them, "Ms. Brooks will be arriving shortly. Be prepared to welcome her." "Huh, Ms. Brooks." Tyrone gasped in shock. Then, he exclaimed, "Why you mean Scarlett Brooks, the chairman of Transgenerational Group?" "Yes." Layla nodded. "What's going on? Who's Ms. Nora? Who's Ms. Brooks? Isn't Mr. Clinton our boss? When did our hotel get involved with Ms. Brooks of Transgenerational? Could it be that Glorious Hotel was bought over?" Everyone murmured apprehensively. Meanwhile, Layla remained silent. She stood at the front door of the hotel together with Tyrone. James approached the hotel and saw Layla. He knew she was someone from Transgenerational. However, He did not walk over to her and merely stood waiting for Scarlett's arrival. That was because she was the only one who knew James' secret identity. If he approached them carelessly, he would be ignored and probably thrown out. After a few minutes had passed, an ordinary-looking business sedan arrived. A woman in a white dress hurriedly got out of it. Her hair was disheveled. It was apparent she left in a hurry. It was Scarlett. After being notified of the events that transpired at Glorious Hotel and James' arrival, she made her way to the hotel as fast as she could. She did not even have the luxury of combing her hair. Ms. Brooks. Layla greeted her. Greetings, Ms. Brooks. Everyone else followed suit. Wearing an anxious expression, Scarlett scanned her surroundings. Yet, she could not find the person she was looking for. She hurriedly asked, "Where's James? Where are the Callahans?" Everyone's blood ran cold. Christopher thought she was here to interfere with the Callahans. He thought that the Five Provinces Business Alliance was in cahoots with Transgenerational Group. He stepped forward to claim the credit as the person responsible for the Callahans' absence at the hotel. Ms. Brooks, I have chased them away. Then, he elaborated on the chain of events to her. He told her what happened at Transgenerational Group, the arrival of the Callahans at Glorious Hotel, and the appearance of Coulson. He then boasted about how he noticed something was amiss and how he chased the Callahans away to rectify letting them enter in the first place. He thought Scarlett was here to press charges against the Callahans and to interrogate him on the matter. What he did not realize was that he had dug his own grave. Scarlett's face immediately twisted in anger. She walked over to him and slapped him hard across his face. Smack. Christopher could not retaliate. He hung his head and apologized profusely. "I'm sorry, Ms. Brooks. I wasn't aware that the Watsons and the Zenoses had blacklisted the Callahans. If I had known, I wouldn't have arranged the rooms for thee in the first place." Tyrone made a small satisfied smile. Christopher had shouldered all the blame. Contrary to Christopher's expectations, Scarlett began to give him an earful. "Who cares about the Watsons and the Zenoses? I don't give a damn about the Five Provinces Business Alliance. The Callahans are the VIPs of Transgenerational Group. Do you seriously think we'd comply with the Zenoses and Watsons' demands so easily?" Christopher could only gape at Scarlett, shocked and speechless. Tyrone was flustered at the realization. After a few seconds, Tyrone walked over to Christopher and kicked him. He yelled sternly at Christopher, "You beastard. What did I tell you? I told you not to neglect the Callahans. What have you done? You're fired." Christopher came back to his senses and sobbed, I didn't know, Ms. Brooks. Where are they? Where are the Callahans? Where's James?" Scarlett demanded answers from her team. Though the others were unaware of James' true identity, she was very aware of who he was. Ads by Pub Future. She owed James a favor. If not for him, she would still have been a lowly grave robber. Even though many wanted him dead, he had survived the 28 fighters' relentless assault and the pursuit of the army of 100,000 soldiers. There was no way in hell anyone in Kensington would be able to kill him. In front of the hotel. Like a child who had been scolded, he pointed at a location a couple of 100 meters away from the hotel and said, "They were over there just now. I'm not sure if they're still there." James then made his appearance. Upon seeing him, Scarlett hurriedly made her way over to her and apologized profusely. I'm sorry, James. It was my mistake. This will never happen again." James gave her a small wave. "Never mind, go get the Callahans in here. Something like this had better not happen again or else." "Yes, yes, yes." She was so nervous she agreed 3 times in a row. "I'll welcome them personally." James shook his head. "No need. You should rest. Let the others do their jobs." Scarlett turned back to her stunned employees. "What are you standing there for? Go." Layla nodded immediately, "Understood, Ms. Brooks." She immediately walked toward the Callahans' direction. The rest of the management team followed suit. Phew. Scarlett took a moment to catch herself. She looked at James and apologized once more. I'm really sorry, James. It's nothing. Go take a rest. Jake responded to her. Understood. Scarlett gladly complied. She nodded, said goodbye to James, and left. A few hundred meters away, the Callahans hung around outside. Some were sitting on the ground tiredly while the others were standing by the side. Can James really deal with this? If he can't, we will be sleeping on the streets tonight. No way. I don't trust him. Thea and her family have only brought bad luck to us. That's right. If not for her, we would still be living in the villa enjoying the air conditioning. The Callahans were unhappy about their predicament. At that moment, Layla and the management team of Glorious Hotel made their way over. The Callahans noticed them approaching. Layla went up to them and apologized profusely. Mr. Callahan, we offer our most sincere apologies. This was a gross oversight on our part. On behalf of Glorious Hotel and Transgenerational Group, we apologize to you. We hope you will find it in your hearts to forgive us. Your rooms have all been arranged. They are all presidential suites. Please, follow me. She gestured for them to follow after her. Please, the rest of the management team said in unison. Stunned, the Callahans stood there with their mouths agape. They were dumbfounded. They had just thrown them out in the most insulting and inhospitable manner. What was with this dramatic change in attitude? Was James responsible for this? Christopher walked over to Lex and slapped himself in front of the elder Callahan. I'm so sorry, Mr. Callahan. This was all my fault. I had no idea you were a VIP of Transgenerational Group. If I had known, I wouldn't have acted so disrespectfully. Tyrone, too, walked over and apologized. This was a mistake on our part. He has been fired. Layla looked over at Tyrone and said, You're fired too. What? Tyrone was stunned. Then, he cried out, Ems. Nora. This had nothing to do with me. This was all Christopher's fault. All this while, I have dedicated myself to the company. Pack your bags and get lost. Layla did not entertain his whining further. If this debacle was enough to get Scarlett Brooks to appear, it spoke volumes about the influence the Callahans had. This applied to James as well, who personally called Scarlett to the hotel. Layla had no choice but to fire a few people. The rest of the hotel's management team remained silent. Tommy, who had just been beaten to a pulp, walked over to Christopher. He postured himself pompously as he spoke to Christopher. You were the one who ordered the security guards to chase us away, weren't you? I'll make you regret doing that. Ads by Pub Future. Tommy delivered a swift kick to Christopher's stomach. Christopher collapsed to the ground. He was afraid of saying anything that could aggravate the situation. James walked over to them and looked at the self-righteous Tommy. He shook his head and stopped Tommy from escalating any further. Let it go. It's late now. You all should check in and take a rest. Tommy stopped himself. Lex looked at James with a look of appreciation on his face. Thank you, James. James acknowledged his gratitude. Layla approached James and said respectfully, Mr. Caden, how do you think we should proceed? Should I overhaul the entire management team along with the security guards? James said dismissively, do as you please. James walked away. James. John approached him meekly. James assured him, I will do something about Montgomery. Thanks. Howard hurriedly said. James said nothing else and continued walking back. Meanwhile, with Layla in the lead, the Callahans entered Glorious Hotel. At long last, they had finally found some temporary lodgings. The Callahans gathered at a presidential suite in the hotel. Howard asked curiously, Father, who exactly is James? After crossing the Watsons and the Zenoses, no one in Kensington wanted to have anything to do with us. How did James manage to convince Transgenerational Group? Tommy immediately thought of a possible reason. Dad, do you remember a woman called Zara who got into Transgenerational with Scarlett while we were at the House of Royals? I heard that she's now the general manager of Transgenerational's Food Street. The statement seemed to have jogged everyone's memories. Back then, Thea had wanted to divorce James because she suspected something was going on between Zara and James. There must be something fishy going on between them. James must have begged Zara to help him out. The Callahans found themselves in a heated discussion. Lex raised his hand to silence the group. All right now, everyone dispersed from her. Go sleep. Everyone left the presidential suite and returned to their rooms. James left Glorious Hotel. He called Jake immediately. Jake, who was asleep, was woken up by the call. When he saw James' name on the screen, he wasted no time and immediately answered the phone. James. What's wrong? I want the Oswald's address. Which Oswald? Stefan Oswald's household. He has a son named Coulson. All right, I will see to it immediately. Jake hung up the phone and immediately directed headquarters to activate the intelligence web. Soon, he had gotten his hands on the Oswald's information. He sent them all to James. James drove toward the Oswald's villa. Kensington was in disarray, and various parties were involved behind it. It would be difficult to rescue Montgomery through his own connections. Additionally, he had no government contacts aside from Blythe King. As the commander-in-chief of the 5 armies, his lofty position was a coveted subject by many ambitious people. If he made even a single mistake, he could be brought down. There was only one way to save Montgomery. He just had to get the one who sent him to prison to get him out. Soon, he arrived at the Oswald's villa. It was almost 3 in the morning. However, the lights were still on the second floor of the villa. James got off his car and approached the outer perimeter of the villa. Putting his palms against the wall, he leaped 2 meters into the air and into the villa's surroundings. Then, he climbed the wall to the second floor and reached the balcony of the room which still had its lights on. In the room, Coulson's nose was stuffed with tissue paper. Montgomery had struck him in the nose, and he was still bleeding. He was in a good mood, however. He landed himself in Key Xenos's good books after screwing with the Callahans. With the Xenoses covering his back, he and his family would be rich. To celebrate his success, he spent $1 million on a second-tier female star. Ads by Pub Future. They were currently engaging in sexual intercourse. James could hear the noises the moment he got on the balcony. Even if he had never experienced it before, he knew what was going on. He frowned and muttered, "Don't they need to sleep at such an hour?" He wanted to barge in, but he believed it would be inappropriate for him to do so. So, he waited for approximately 10 minutes. Eventually, the noises stopped. James pushed the window open and crawled into the room. A naked woman with a curvaceous figure was lying in Coulson's arms. She caressed Coulson's chest and asked seductively, "Mr. Oswald, you promised me you'd invest in a movie and make me the female lead." "Haha, yes I did." Coulson was in a good mood. He laughed, "It won't be a problem when I get rich." At that moment, a man pushed the window open and crawled into the room. The woman immediately covered her body with the blanket. Coulson was startled. He then yelled, "James, you piece of sh*t. What are you doing here?" He was yelling while hurriedly getting dressed. Just as he put on his pants, James walked over to him and inserted a silver needle into his body. With his acupuncture points blocked, his body immediately went limp. His face turned pale. "What have you done?" Upon seeing the woman cowering under the blanket, James scratched his nose and murmured silently, "Rich people really do have interesting hobbies." He was a normal, red-blooded man. He could not stop his imagination from running wild upon hearing the noises while he was outside. He decided to do it with Thea once he got back. Even if Thea was unwilling, he was determined to see it through. He had been suppressing his desire for a long time now. He grabbed a stool and sat down casually. Looking at Coulson, who was paralyzed, he gave him a small smile. "You should know why I'm here." Coulson screeched like a banshee. "What have you done to me, you trash? I'm telling you, you're dead meat." I will sue you for trespassing onto private land. Look forward to spending the rest of your life in prison. James snickered at the threats. He stood up. A dozen silver needles suddenly appeared in his hand. He swung his hand, and the needles pierced through Coulson's skin. You. Sensing the changes within his body, his face lost its color. James took the needles out and tossed them into a trash can nearby. Don't think of touching women ever again. He did what he came here for and so, turned to leave. After he left, Coulson immediately took his pants off. Oh God! Looking at the female star cowering under the blanket, he shrieked with rage. The female star immediately got up and looked at Coulson. She was stunned. She began to do anything she could. However, no matter what she did, there was no reaction. Ah, what do I do now? Coulson cried out in desperation. Meanwhile, James headed to Stefan's room. Stefan was asleep. Hearing the noise of someone crawling in from the window, he immediately startled awake. He swiftly switched on the lights and pulled out a dagger from behind the bed. He yelled, "Who's there? What's wrong, Stefan? Why are you screaming in the middle of the night?" A beautiful woman lay beside him. She looked at Stefan in irritation. Upon seeing James approaching them, she screamed. Aha! James walked over to them and sat on a stool. James, you piece of trash. What are you doing here at my house? Seeing it was James, Stefan's blood boiled with anger. He pulled out his phone to call the police. Ads by Pub Future. James lit a cigarette and said nonchalantly, "Stefan Oswald, I would suggest not acting rashly. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences." Seeing James' composed attitude, he drew a sharp breath. Why's he here in the middle of the night? Could he be here for the Callahans? He stared daggers at James. "James, what do you want?" James pulled his phone out. Looking through the information that Jake had sent him, he read out loud, "Coulson knocked up a female student a year ago. He pushed her down from the 8th floor and killed her. The Oswalds claimed that it was a suicide. 3 years ago, Stefan gave a bribe of $8 million in cash to a project developer. 5 years ago, the Oswalds processing plant was burnt down. 3 people died in the fire. At the end, enough, Stefan growled. He narrowed his eyes and asked, "What do you want?" Stefan's mind was racing. He did not understand how James knew of this. If exposed, the Oswalds would be ruined. James regarded him with steely eyes. "I heard that the Oswalds were targeting the Callahans. They even brutally assaulted Montgomery and sent him to prison. As expected, he was here for Montgomery." Stefan's face was pale. James stood up and spoke, "Go to the police station immediately and send him to the hospital for medical treatment. Then, go to Glorious Hotel and notify the Callahans. If Montgomery isn't back by tomorrow morning, I'll leave that to your imagination." James turned to leave. After he left, Stefan was deep in thought. It did not take him long to pull out his phone. "Mr. Zeke, I don't plan to take further actions against Montgomery. By the way, send him to the hospital and notify the Callahans at Glorious Hotel." After weighing his options, he chose to obey James. Although he could potentially offend the Watsons and the Zenoses, it would not be too disastrous of a result. However, if he disobeyed James, the Oswalds would be doomed. There would be no more hope for them. James rushed home. By the time he reached home, it was almost 4 in the morning. Ever since he left, Thea had been waiting for him to return. James opened the door. "You're finally back, honey. How did things go? Is everything settled?" James walked over to her and asked, "Why aren't you asleep yet?" "I have solved the problem. The Callahans have found a place to stay. Everything's fine, so don't worry and go to sleep." Thea breathed a sigh of relief. Looking at Thea, who was wearing revealing lingerie, it was hard not to notice her curvaceous figure and her delicate features. James tried his best to suppress his desire. He approached her and hugged her. His hand slowly crept toward her waist. He could smell an alluring fragrance on her. As James was proficient in biology, he knew that it was her natural scent and not perfume. Honey, he gulped. He opened and shut his mouth like a fish out of water. All right now, it's getting late already. We should go to sleep. Thea blushed. Then, she pulled James onto the bed.